All right, what's going on YouTube? So I just learned that there's a statistic out there that 92% of men have never had their abs to show. And when I first learned that statistic, I was a little bit shocked because getting your abs to show just really comes down to being at a low enough body fat percentage, which isn't the most complicated thing in the world. Yes, it can take a good amount of time, some consistency, but it really is not that complex. So I'm making this video because I remember the first time I had my abs to show, I felt like I was a completely different person. I was bullied, insecure, and hated the way I looked, but once I had abs for the first time, I felt like a completely different person. And I remember the first time I had abs, I finally had the confidence to go up and start talking to girls. And when I was in that peak shape for the very first time, I had my first girlfriend. And that's why I'm making this video, because when I had my abs to show for the very first time, I unlocked a level of confidence and self-esteem that I never even thought was possible for myself. So in this video, I'm gonna be going over the top 3 mistakes I see men make when it comes to trying to get their abs to show, as well as some corrections to those mistakes. And as per usual, I'm gonna give you some actionable items to follow that you can implement right now into your routine so you can get your abs to show as soon as possible. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
So as you guys kind of briefly heard in the intro, 92% of men will never see their abs, nor have ever seen their abs. And like I mentioned, I was kind of shocked because I got visible abs for the first time within about 2 to 3-ish years of working out. The picture right here on the far left that I flashed up at the beginning as well is me just after, like I said, 2 to 3 years of lifting after my very first cut. And I remember this picture, I was feeling on top of the world because I had my first girlfriend at the time, and she took this picture of me. And when I saw that picture, I was like, oh my God. And I just compared that to how I looked and how I felt prior. And I was, like I said, a completely different person, reached a new level of confidence and self-esteem that I feel like I never even knew was capable for myself. And these pictures here, these are all me right now, pretty much at the end of my last cut. The best I've ever looked by far, just continuing to progress my physique over time. Not only am I someone who has gotten completely shredded countless times, but I'm also someone who has maintained my six-pack ever since getting it for the very first time about 6-7 years ago. So I'm just going to go right into the statistics that I saw. 8% of men in the United States have a visible six-pack, which is kind of shocking, but at the same time it's not, because at the end of the day the obesity rate in the United States is 40%, and really it just comes down to all the junk food, the processed food that's available to people. It just goes down the convenience route and thinks that you're eating healthier meals, going to the gym on a consistent basis, all of that is just too far out of reach, when in reality it's not that difficult to find a few hours to hit the gym per week, stick to a consistent nutrition plan that keeps you in a calorie deficit, and stay consistent. Again, it just comes down to really having that right routine that's in place, that's sustainable, that you can stick to for the long term. And I'm going to get into more details on that specifically as we get later into the video. So let's go into the actual reasons. Number one, your body fat percentage is way too high. Most reasons men's body fat percentage is too high is just poor nutrition approach, don't have the really much guidance or knowledge, inconsistent, and like I mentioned earlier, an unsustainable routine. The reason those things all need to be in place is because you need to know what foods you should be eating, when you should be eating them, and as well as how many calories specifically you need to be eating based on your body type, your goals, your situation, all of those things, etc. And the lack of knowledge aspect comes from in my opinion, just the way society has structured everything is that it's all just marketing towards junk food, processed foods, things that are very calorically dense because they taste good. And I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that places like McDonald's or just like other fast food places literally put substances in their food that is addicting and makes people want to come back. Again, I don't know how true that is. However, I wouldn't be surprised if that was 100% true. Now that that is out of the way, let's get into the top 3 mistakes, the corrections for those, and then actionable items that you can apply today so you can get your abs to show as soon as possible. Mistake number 1 that I see so many people make is that they're focusing on ab workouts instead of nutrition. Like, yes, you can build up your abs and, get them a little bit more blockier, get them a little bit bigger. Getting abs, and if you just have blocky abs, it's not going to look as good as if you're lean and have more aesthetically looking abs. You don't really need to train abs that much to get them to show. Like, literally all I do is 6 sets of leg raises per week and have abs year round. I don't really isolate my abs. I don't have a specific ab training day. I just do a little bit of abs at the end of some of my workouts, and that's really all you need to do. Again, it just comes down to being at a low enough body fat percentage to actually be able to see your abs. Everyone knows the phrase abs are made in the kitchen, which is it's super cliche, but it is very true. I put it a little bit different. Abs are earned outside of the gym because, yes, the nutrition is very important, but you also need to consider the amount of calories that you're burning as well as the amount of sleep that you're getting, the amount of stress that you're managing. All of those things play a big factor into fat loss. So it's not just the calories, it's a bunch of different factors that play into your role. And you also have to keep in mind that eating healthy does not equal fat loss. Like, you can eat 10,000 calories. This is an extreme example. You can eat 10,000 calories of chicken, broccoli, and rice and still get fat. Or on the other side of the spectrum, you can eat 1,000 calories of Oreos per day and get completely shredded. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying that is possible, because it all comes down to calories in, calories out, and then considering all the other variables that I mentioned prior. You need to be in a calorie deficit. That is what burns fat. Make sure you're in a calorie deficit. Make sure you're getting enough sleep, good hydration, being consistent. That is what matters most. Foods and meals that you want to be focused on is high protein, whole food focused approach. What that can look like, again, I always recommend that you space out your meals, for like minimum 4 meals per day, having a whole food protein source like chicken, egg whites, eggs, beef, things like that, and then having some sort of clean carb source to go with it, oats, rice, cream of rice, some fruit, just something along those lines, so your body's just going to partition those nutrients much more effectively, as opposed to if you just eat fast food and had a high fat diet. What I am saying is that having a high protein and whole food focused approach is going to help with your satiation and help with nutrient partition. The second mistake that I see most people make is they're only focusing on cardio and not weightlifting. Like, cardio is a good tool. Like, I do 20 to 30 minutes year round fasted in the morning. When I'm trying to get like even leaner, I will up the cardio a little bit. I'll do some walks at night. And by all means, that is something that you could have for your cardio as well. Just doing some additional upping your step count every day. Do like 3,000 to 5,000 steps per day, and then use that as a tool to burn additional cardio or additional calories. But what you need to keep in mind is that if you only focus on cardio, that is how you get put yourself into that skinny fat phase. And I was someone who was there before I even started working out. I was like 130 pounds, but had absolutely zero muscle. And it was kind of embarrassing. It was a tough spot to be, because once you've put yourself in that skinny fat phase, you're in this situation where you're not sure if you should bulk because you don't want to put any more fat on, but at the same time, you don't know if you should cut more because you're already super skinny. That is why you need to focus on weight training as opposed to just doing the cardio. Not only that, but also focusing more on strength training is going to build muscle and improve nutrient partitioning, because you need to think about it this way. Building muscle requires calories. Not only the process of actually lifting weights is going to burn some calories, but the process of building up that muscle is going to require calories as well. And then when you have more muscle is going to increase your metabolic rate, therefore making it easier to burn fat in the long term. So all you really need to do for like the actionable item here is just 4 to 6 hours a week of strength training per week is plenty. 45 minutes to an hour-ish, 4 to 5 times a week at the gym. That should be good, but you need to make sure the right intensity is in place. You're going to failure, or at least very close to failure, on all your working sets. You're utilizing progressive overload, and you really just have the right training approach dialed in. All in all, focus on weight training much more than cardio. Think about cardio as a tool that you can use to burn more calories. It should not be your priority. If you prioritize weight training and nutrition, having a high protein diet and a whole food focus that I went over in the previous mistake, then you're setting yourself up for success. So the third mistake, and the number one reason why 92% of men will never see their abs, and this one is unfortunate, I'm not gonna lie. It is because they make excuses. The two most common excuses I see are genetics and lack of time. But let's get into genetics first. Genetics has little to nothing to do with body fat. Body fat is completely based on your lifestyle and habits. So if you're someone who's been overweight for a majority of your life, maybe you grew up overweight, you might be under the impression that it is your genetics. However, you need to keep in mind that you've had those bad lifestyle habits for a majority of your life. Maybe they were passed down from your parents, or maybe you just never built up the good habits initially in the first place. And that can make it more difficult over time when your body is so used to being at a higher body fat percentage. That might make it take longer for you to actually get your abs to show if you've been at a higher body fat percentage a majority of your life. Yes, some people have faster metabolisms than others, but however, just because you might have a slower metabolism than me or someone else, that doesn't mean the fundamentals of fat loss don't apply to you, because someone with a faster metabolism in 99% of cases is going to have a higher appetite. Like for me, I have a fast metabolism but my appetite is also extremely high. Whereas I have some other clients who have a way slower metabolism than me, but they're eating, around 2,000 calories per day, and it seems like a lot of food to them. Really, at the end of the day, your genetics do not determine how much body fat percentage you have. Every food choice you make is yours. No one forces you to overeat. No one forces you to put bad food in your mouth. That is all on you. And being able to actually accept and understand that is one of the first things that you need to come to the realization of if you actually want to get your abs to show. Throw the excuse of genetics out the window. The other excuse that I hear all the time is a lack of time. This one's funny because you do not need time to be in a calorie deficit. All that comes down to is just making better food choices, and comes down to tracking your calories, just being a little bit more prepared, being a little bit more mindful with what you're eating. That's really all it comes down to. I use a air fryer and a rice cooker every single day. It takes me 2 to 3 minutes to get everything rice cooker in the air fryer. Then I let it cook. I go do something else. I let it cook for however long it needs to be cooked. I come back. I take another 2 to 3 minutes to put everything in Rubbermaids, and it's all ready for me. It does not take long at all to make sure that you have good food prepped throughout the day. Like, just anyone who says you don't have, like, you need a bunch of time to do meal prep has the complete wrong idea on how to actually meal prep. And as far as like working out, I kind of touched on this prior, but you don't need to be spending countless hours a week in the gym. Only 4 to 6 hours a week is really all you need to focus on strength training. Maybe do a little bit of cardio in the morning, increase your step count throughout the day. That's really it. Like, and if you quote unquote don't have time to hit the gym that much, just eat a little bit less calories, because you do not need time to be in a calorie deficit. Actionable items here is you need to understand that body fat percentage is based on lifestyle and habits, and you don't need time to be in a calorie deficit. You just need to make better food choices. So as far as expectations, so if you went through these things and you're going to implement the actionable items that I talked about here, what you need to expect is that it can take time. You need patience. It can take 6+ months for some people even longer. Like, if you've been at 30 to 35% body fat for a majority of your life, it might even take over a year. I mean, that's just the way it goes. However, it is possible. You might have to do a couple diet breaks here and there to manage fatigue, hunger, all of that, but it is doable for anyone. Like, just because you've seen these crazy transformations online, that doesn't mean that they are anomalies, or that you can't apply the same things to yourself and still get an insane transformation. You just need patience, and it can take a while. Once you understand that and you put in the work consistently, you track everything, you're mindful with what you're eating, you're not slacking off, you maybe take, like I said, a couple diet breaks to mitigate fatigue and hunger, you can get there eventually. It's just, like I said, it's going to take some time. The other thing is that you need to make sure that you have a permanent lifestyle change, and then commit to that permanent lifestyle change. Because at the end of the day, getting in shape or fitness is a lifestyle commitment. Like, if you want to have abs year round, or get abs to show for the very first time, you have to understand that your approach has to be sustainable. And once you align yourself with that new lifestyle, align yourself with that person who has the six pack. Because I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, the version of you with the six pack who is able to maintain it year round is not slacking off, going drinking every weekend, not binging on fast food every other day. They're not tracking their calories. They're staying on top of everything. They're not missing workouts. They're staying on top of everything. That version of you with the six pack is living a completely different lifestyle than you right now at a higher body fat percentage. And you also need to keep in mind, one big habit that I highly recommend most people do is start tracking your calories. It's not difficult at all. Like, if intuitive eating and quote unquote eyeballing it is working, then you would have had your abs years ago, because that is what most people do. They do intuitive eating. They go to the gym a few times a week. They maybe do a little bit of cardio. They eat what seems to be healthy. But as I mentioned earlier, just because you're eating healthy, that does not mean you're going to burn fat. That does not mean you're in a calorie deficit. Start tracking your calories. It's very simple. Like, what I do is I plan out my day the day before. I input the meals that I'm going to have into MyFitnessPal, see how many calories that is, make sure that aligns with how many calories I actually need, and then just look at that throughout the day, so I don't have to go through during that given day and take the extra time to go into MyFitnessPal. I do it the night before, making sure that I save time the day of. And final thoughts here is that if you want something 92% of men don't have, then you're going to have to do what 92% of men are not willing to do. And 92% of men are not willing to put in the work, be consistent, and find the right routine that works for them. At the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, getting abs or just losing body fat in general is not super complicated. Yes, it can be a little bit difficult for some, but again, once you have the right routine in place, even if you're losing just, half a pound to a pound per week, but you enjoy what you're doing, you're still going to get there. Process of getting your abs to show, getting really lean, is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, if you try to rush the process, crash diet, all you're going to do is just create additional problems for yourself. You're going to crash your metabolism. You're going to binge eat. You're going to go back to where you were. I've seen it happen countless time and time again. So you have to make sure that you have the right routine in place. And 92% of men are not willing to stick with it long enough to dial things in, to continue to optimize things over time, to have that right routine in place. And if you feel like you've tried everything trying to dial in the right routine, then just find someone who's going to help you do that. It doesn't have to be me, but it can be someone who has maybe a little bit more experience in the gym, who's been clearly going to the gym on a consistent basis, who loves their routine. They can probably point you in the right direction and guide you, because getting that right routine in place is probably the most important aspect, because you need patience. You need to have that lifestyle commitment and align yourself with the version of you that has the six pack. And then you need to have that routine in place. Once those things are all dialed in, you implement the actionable items that I talked about prior in fixing those mistakes, then eventually you'll get your abs show. It's good, like I said, it's gonna take time, but anyone is capable of doing it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. A little bit quicker than my other videos, but I still hope you found it valuable. If you have any questions on anything I went over, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I reply to everyone, or you can just DM me on Instagram. It's devind.fit. I'll pop it up on the screen right here. You can DM, drop me a follow on Instagram, and I'll see if I can help. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys found it valuable, and I will see you in the next one.